Welcome to OState Daily. Casey Porter here. So glad that you decided to tune in on a very busy Monday. Hey, glad you decided to check out OState Daily because we have a lot to talk about today on this beautiful Monday, President's Day. And so, hey, let's dive right into it. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get right to it, and let's talk cowboy and cowgirl sports. So let's start with the Clearwater Invitational with the softball team. And, hey, let's guide this how you want to guide it. I know it's lunchtime, so maybe we'll get a crowd, maybe we won't. This will probably be more watching after the fact, that kind of deal. But if you have any questions or if you want to cover over any particular thing that you want to talk about, then let me know, and we will absolutely guide it to the way that you want this to go. But let's start with the softball. Let's start with a really good weekend for the Cowgirls. Cowgirls went to Clearwater and on back-to-back games beat Texas A&M and UCLA. Now, the offense was great, and I understand Oklahoma State gave up a big lead against Texas A&M. So the way that I have kind of evaluate that as just as far as early season goes is, yes, this whole weekend was about results. I think if you watch the way that Coach Gajewski set everything up, I mean, it was Riley Crandall and it was Ruby Malin. There was no experimentation. It was those two. Let's win as many games as we can. And because here's the deal. The Big 12's good, but you're not going to get opportunities throughout the entire conference season to get games back like against an A&M that's highly ranked, or against a UCLA, or against an LSU or a Georgia. These are big RPI opportunities to set yourselves up for the best possible regional scenario, and then maybe hopefully being a national seed, because the way Cowgirl Stadium is, if you host regionals and you host super regionals, it is such a great home field advantage. It's a huge deal. So these first two weekends, the Cowgirls needed to be 1,000% results-based. I know you're thinking as a fan, well, aren't you always results-based? Well, yes, but at the same time, what a softball and baseball season is, there's a lot of building to it. So you don't want to be the final product, obviously, on day one, as you are whenever you begin regionals in May. So there's, hey, well, we have, 3 or 4 pitchers. We need to start building up our pitching depth. We've got some right-handed hitters off the bench. We've got some platoon players. We've got all these kinds of things. This was treated at Clearwater like it was a huge conference weekend, or maybe even a regional. I feel like Coach Gajewski kind of managed this like it was a regional opportunity, and I thought that was just absolutely fantastic. Now you go back and you get to play Kansas City, Texas State, Brown, Colorado State, Brown again, Nebraska, SEMO, Nebraska again, South Dakota State, Missouri State. Not that those aren't good teams and good programs, but it's not Cal, Stanford, Georgia, LSU, A&M, UCLA. So this was all about RPI building. Love the way Coach Gajewski managed it, and I love the way the Cowgirls responded. I know it wasn't perfect. I know giving up the lead against A&M wasn't awesome. And by the way, congratulations to Talon Edwards for getting the hit against Oklahoma State. I personally, I wish her nothing but the best. I have no idea why she left Oklahoma State. Her or Michaela Work, but it was good to see her. I feel like that both of those players emptied their tanks for OSU, and for that I'm appreciative, and I wish them nothing but the best moving forward. The Cowgirls got to see them with Texas A&M. So, not necessarily getting the nitty-gritty of the games, but I'll say this Cowgirl offense has a chance to be really, really good, okay? I think both, obviously you saw it where Schneidmiller and Godwin went back-to-back home runs. But I think both Hassler and Schneidmiller, very good at the catcher spot. I think you have a premier player at first base. Presley, as a young pitcher, just needs reps. I agree. Hopefully this weekend she'll get them. Texas State is a good team. That's another one. Again, Presley, the young lady out of Owasso, is going to be a really good pitcher. Hopefully very valuable depth to this team. But this last weekend is all about you have to win as many games to improve your RPI. So down the road, whenever you're looking to host a regional or super regional, you have these wins under your belt. So if you're a young girl, it's not to say that there's not huge plans for you. It's to say right now is not that time. So totally agree with that. Great young pitcher, just needs reps. Hopefully she gets them this weekend. Presley, yes. And so I think Carly Godwin, premier player. Rosie Davis is off to a slow start. But how about the huge day she had against A&M and UCLA? That's what she's capable of. Aubrey Jones at shortstop, I think, has played good defensively. I think you have a lot of speed. I mean, a lot of speed with Jael Austin, Claire Tim, whoever else mans the outfield for the Cowgirls. I think this stands to be, well, so far, I think it's been an elite defensive team. I think it's been a really, really, really good offensive team. I think Ruby Malin has a chance to be a very, very, very high-end ace pitcher for this Cowgirls team. I know she's not off to the greatest start. I get it. Her confidence has kind of come and gone. It happens, okay? She is not that pitcher yet. I don't care, okay? What I care about is that what she did, and I'm just going to put it to you point blank, I just think she lost some confidence, especially against A&M and some of her other outings. When she came in against UCLA, I know she gave up the home run to tie the game. But I'm telling you, she was electric. She was Ruby Malin again. She was dealing. She was having fun. She was, give me the dang ball, let me throw it again. I really feel like Ruby Malin, turned a corner confidence-wise, even though, again, she gave up the home run to UCLA to tie it, which sent it into extra innings. And I'll tell you another thing is that, we mentioned, Scott and I have, this team I think needs to hit more home runs than it did last year. I think it needs to look more like it did in 2024 than it did in 2025. Obviously, you have home run power with Carly Godwin. Schneidmiller can hit home runs. We saw that. Amanda Hassler can hit. I mean, you've got several players in this lineup that definitely can hit home runs. But what beat UCLA in extra innings was just quality at bats. What beat Vanderbilt in the baseball game Sunday was quality at bats. Yes, the Colin Ritchie home runs are a heck of a lot of fun. Yes, the back-to-back home runs from Schneidmiller and Godwin were fun, but it's the quality at bats that you had, drawing the walks, getting deep into counts, putting the ball in play. How about Brady Francisco just dumping one into center field after Alex Conover had drawn a gritty walk? How about Brock Thompson going the other way on a pitch on the outer half? How about TP Wentworth going the other way with a pitch, not trying to kill it? That's what beat UCLA in extra innings, was the fact that the Cowgirls just put the dang thing in play. And even against a team that's ranked number 6 in the country like UCLA was, depending on which poll, if you put pressure on them, they crack. And so I think the UCLA game did a lot of things for this Cowgirl team. I think it got Ruby Malin back on track. And I'll tell you another thing. Riley Crandall kind of was doing what Riley Crandall does, and she's throwing strikes and putting the ball in play and giving up some hits. There's give and take to it, right? I think there's a little bit of that. But then also I think what I saw from Riley Crandall was a really, really good compliment to Ruby Malin. Now, do you want Riley Crandall to be your ace? That you have to, another thing that I worry about is that, my gosh, how many pitches did Ruby Malin have to throw this weekend? So not only did Ruby Malin have to overcome some adversity, have to overcome some confidence issues, in my opinion, she also had to overcome fatigue. So for that, I'm going to say, hey, Ruby Malin, job well done. Appreciate you, girl. Thank you for putting everything. Thank you for emptying your tank and getting the job done, point blank. I really felt like Riley Crandall got the job done. We talked about the young lady from Owasso, Presley. I think she's going to be very good on the mound as well. I came away from this weekend more so than just the results, the wins that you got over UCLA and Texas A&M and Georgia, going 3-1. That's absolutely awesome. Okay. More than that, beyond that, the process aspect of it, I feel like really you made big strides in your pitching. You put yourself in position to add a third pitcher coming up against Texas State. I think you solidified some aspects of your defense. You got some. So your defense so far, 2 errors. Two errors. Rosie Davis has been good at third base. Aubrey Jones, again, I think is going to be very good at shortstop. Your catchers are good. Your outfield can run. So elite defense, top echelon pitcher, ace pitcher in Ruby Malin, an extremely good number 2 in Riley Crandall. And hey, whenever you bring in your number 2, what you want is you want that number 2 to give you a chance. And when I say that, what do you say? Well, give you a chance, obviously. Well, yeah, throw strikes. Don't go out there and walk the whole other team. And when your stuff's not good enough to do that with, just play the odds. Hitting is hard. That's what I would love to just scream and holler at these OSU baseball guys sometimes. And if you read any of my posts, if I'm able to do them during the game, it just screams, hitting is hard, okay? So as a pitcher, okay, and this is, I think, something that Ethan Lund's going to have to learn. As dirty as this stuff is, hitting's hard. Throw a strike. You don't have to make a perfect pitch. Not every pitch has to be designed to make a guy look foolish at the plate. Not every pitch has to be designed to overpower a guy. Not every pitch has to be designed to fool a guy and get swing and miss. So what a guy like Ethan Lund needs to do, to me sometimes Ruby Malin, I know she's working on that changeup, the third pitch. She loves throwing that rise ball at the top of the zone. She loves getting that swing and miss. But hey, this is a great defense. It should be a great defense for the Cowgirls. Sometimes just make a good pitch, make the ball move subtly. Instead of missing the bat, miss the barrel, get a ground ball to Aubrey Jones, and let's get an out in 2 pitches. I think Riley Crandall as a number 2 is the perfect pitcher to do that. Is she dominant? I don't think she's going to be. But I think she could be a top echelon number 2, if you will. And then I think Presley could be a really, really, really good number 3. And I think also, too, as I said, as I wind this back in together, try to tie it together, I think they need to pitch to the type of defense this team is going to have. Let the other team hit the ball. Plus, here's another thing. I think this offense is going to score enough to where the approach for the pitchers for Oklahoma State doesn't have to be to strike everybody out. So if we put the ball in play, if we get quick outs, a handful or 2 of those a game, even if it does result in, say, giving up an extra run or 2 that you might not have, if you had slowed it down and tried to get every hitter to swing and miss every pitch you throw, okay, the offense is good enough to allow you to do that. And I'm going to say this. You saw this in the baseball game on Sunday, okay? When Oklahoma State put up the 4 spot, when Noah Weck came back out the next inning and went 3 up, 3 down, and here's the impressive part of that to me, the mature part, he got down 3-1 to there was 2 outs, nobody on. He got down 3-1 to a hitter. And I'm thinking to myself, Noah, throw the damn thing right down the middle. I don't care if they hit this thing back to Denton and they hit the Hall of Fame sign that they're getting ready to hang for Coach Morris. I don't care, but we just gave you 4 runs. Throw a strike and don't walk anybody on the other team. Pitch to the circumstance. Pitch to the situation. And you know what Noah did? He threw a middle fastball, which I know pisses him off because he's so competitive. He's like, gosh, dang it. These are really good hitters. Well, you saw it. He gave up a home run later, doing the exact same thing. But I'll be darned if Noah Weck doesn't throw a middle, gets an out. Oklahoma State gets back in the dugout. Why do I say all that? Momentum. So this Cowgirls offense is good. And if the pitchers give this offense momentum, by doing exactly what Noah Weck did yesterday on Sunday when Oklahoma State scored the 4 runs, okay? Okay, so our offense, Cowgirl offense, scores a couple. We go back to back. Go out and get a first out, ground ball to Aubrey Jones, okay? Go get a fly out to J.L. Austin. Go get a 6 or 7 pitch inning, and then your offense is back in the right back in the dugout, feeling the momentum. Everything is getting contagious, and I can tell you when the momentum starts rolling towards this Cowgirl offensive side, and when things start getting contagious, this offense can put up 8 or 9 runs against anybody like that. And so I think speeding the game up from a pitcher's perspective, putting more balls in play, that kind of thing is a strategy that will work for this team. I came out of this weekend super excited about this team. I think this is a team. The only thing I do worry about with this team is, do they have enough power to actually be a team that can score 8 or 9 runs against the better pitchers consistently and in the big moments? We'll see. I mean, there are some girls on this team that can hit home runs, but I love the quality of bats. I love the small ball. I'm a huge fan of it. Trust me. But in today's day and age, with the pitching as being so good, baseball too, if you want to consistently put up crooked numbers, it's going to have to come through the long ball, okay? Having said that, you have to have a great offense first. A long ball has to accompany an approach that's meant to be a great hitter first. If you're not trying to be a great hitter first, what's going to happen is you're going to hit a bunch of solo home runs because you're never going to have anybody on base. And solo home runs we saw Oklahoma State Cowgirls, Riley Crandall, solo home runs. Didn't beat the Cowgirls, right? It's the Colin Ritchie 3-run shots after you've drawn a walk, after you've gotten a base hit to the opposite field. It's the quality at bats in front of the home runs that create the crooked numbers. So, yes, you need the home runs to put up the crooked numbers. You got to have power. You got to have slug. Just go back to the World Series. Look at the teams that win. But you also have to have the quality at bats in front of the power. So you have to be a great hitter first. You have to be a great hitting offense first, and then orbit the home runs around that great hitter. Orbit the home runs around the great offense. So I think this team has a chance to be a great offensive team. I worry if they have enough power to add to that great offense that I think they're going to have to put up the consistent crooked numbers. I think they do, but that's, if I were to ask me what's my biggest takeaway in terms of, well, if this team could or couldn't win a national title or whatever it may be, what would be the one thing you're the most worried about? Not to say I'm even worried about it, but the most worried about everything else. I think the defense is going to take care of itself. Ruby, Malin, Crandall, I think are going to be a really dynamic 1-2 punch. And I think the offense from a execution perspective is going to be fantastic. We'll see how the power adds up behind that. Hey, Coach G outcoached the UCLA coach in extra innings. Runner starts in second. You have 3 outs to move her over. UCLA didn't. Game over. I'm going to disagree with you on that. I like small ball. I can tell you they have ran every single modern day analytic on the placed runner. It's not a ghost runner. It's a placed runner. When you're the visitors, the statistics will tell you if you bunt that runner to third as the visitor, then you actually decrease your chances of winning. I mean, it's like 47 to 53%. This isn't my opinion. These are the modern analytics that have been done on that placed run. Now, if you're the home team and all you need is 1 run to win the game, yes, then it's automatic. You bunt her to third. But if you're the visiting team, that 1 run is not worth giving up that out in that situation. And as a matter of fact, more than 50% of the time, you actually lose the game if you bunt that runner to third as the visitor. Again, that's not my opinion. That's the modern analytics that they've done on that. So I'm going to disagree a little bit on that. What I am going to say on that, though, is I just think the Cowgirls had way better quality at bats. They put the dang ball in play. They put pressure on UCLA. They didn't give in, and they eventually forced UCLA into a mistake. Now, the game against Duke, I didn't get to see a whole lot of it. I wasn't surprised. It was a long weekend. As a matter of fact, I kind of was a little bit worried that the Cowgirls might take one on the chin just because, I mean, you had huge wins against A&M and UCLA. You beat Georgia. I know you need that win really bad for RPI and all that, but it's just very difficult to come back that next day and regenerate everything. So I have no issues with the 96 loss to Duke. Baseball-wise, going to be very, very honest about the first 2 days. They sucked. There was not anything about Friday and Saturday that Oklahoma State fans should have had any emotions over other than that sucked. That's unacceptable. That's not OSU baseball. And if that group of kids and coaches don't get that together, I'm not watching that. That's the only emotion any Oklahoma State fan should have. Hey, I get it. There's a lot of people in Cowboy Nation now that feel like the seat should be hot for Josh. It's a great debate to have because I personally am on the side of the consistency, the consistent excellence in the Big 12 titles, the consistent excellence in always making the postseason, the consistent excellence in just last year, a year that really kind of was a down year. Oklahoma State, if you analyze it, they were one of the top 32 teams to finish the season. They were one of the last 32 teams playing. You equate that to basketball, that's not only making the NCAA tournament, that's winning the first round. If that's your down year in basketball, where you not only make the tournament but win your first round game, that's been the best season Oklahoma State's had with Cade Cunningham. So baseball's worst season is what would be considered Oklahoma State's best season, since Travis Ford, since Byron Eaton hit the layup against Tennessee, okay? So that's pretty good. Now, it's that debate versus, hey, the standard is Omaha. My standard is Omaha. So if you want to tell me that, okay, we need another coach because we haven't been to Omaha in a decade, okay, I'm not going to push back and try to change your mind. What I'm going to ask you is, okay, who? Okay, what coach? What I am going to push back with on this too, okay, don't tell me Dan Hefner. Dan Hefner is Gary Ward at Dallas Baptist. Dan Hefner doesn't have to deal with football. He doesn't have to deal with basketball. He doesn't have to deal with a resource scenario to where you're about middle of the pack of the Big 12 Conference. I'm going to say this point blank. This is not my opinion. This is a fact. Oklahoma State baseball has outproduced its resources, okay? I know you're going to say, oh, Brait, I'm going to tell you this very simply, okay? I don't know how many college baseball players I've talked to. I've interviewed probably 300 players throughout the Dodgers system, okay? About 5 or 6 of them actually went to Oklahoma State. I've interviewed Billy Gasparino, Brian Kraft. I've talked to Johnny Atkins about it. Chris Gutierrez was the third base coach for Oklahoma City Comets, and he came from Florida. The same, talked to Aiden Miola, who's from Florida, Brian Holiday, who's from Florida. They didn't know who OSU was, okay? The tradition that Gary Ward built, okay, they didn't know anything about that until they had a link that brought them to OSU. Then they got to reading about that link was Matt Holiday. So kind of what I'm trying to tell you is the OState Stadium is fantastic. It's awesome. It is not a factor at all in roster construction, especially I'm going to tell you this too before we move on to this is my argument. The home field advantage of OState is terrible, okay? I can tell you this. The opposing teams will tell you this. The players that have played there will tell you this. Former players will tell you this. Anybody who's been a part of the home field advantage of OState, it is a terrible home field advantage. Oklahoma State fans do a terrible job creating a home field advantage at OState. Point blank, okay? Again, this is not my opinion. This is through talking to many, hundreds, not tens, hundreds of players that have played at OState, both for OSU, against OSU, looking on the surrounding aspects of it, like, hey, I'm a guy that might go there. I see it on TV. What do I see from that? So if you want to use OState as a resource, fine, okay? It's not. It's not really a factor in roster construction. So tie that with a bow, okay? Oklahoma State's about mid-pack in resources in the Big 12. I'd say probably top 50 in resources in college baseball. That's probably a fair summation there, okay? There are several schools in the Big 12 right now that are dwarfing Oklahoma State in resources, okay? Again, not opinion. This is a fact. Oklahoma State baseball has outproduced and probably substantially the resources they have been given. So that's why, and yes, did Josh Holiday grow up in Stillwater? Yes. Do I get interviewed? Yes, all that, okay? But I can tell you, I want Oklahoma State baseball to be healthy, okay? I support Josh Holiday to the point that I do because there's nobody else I'd rather have be the head coach, not because I consider our relationship to be on a friendly basis. And so for anybody to mistake those two, It just absolutely is not the case. So when you look at the consistent success and all of that, so if you want to just make Omaha the only standard, okay, I can't push back on that other than to say, then Oklahoma State fans, the administration, everybody around it needs to give the baseball program the resources to compete that would match what those expectations are if the only standard is we have to make Omaha or I want my coach fired. The resources are not being supported to support that type of standard, okay? That's what I would say to that. Now, if you want to just say, oh, those are excuses, this and that, fine. That is your prerogative. I'm not going to try to talk you out of that. What I am doing is giving you the facts. You can make up your mind however you want on the facts, okay? So the first two games this weekend, absolutely terrible. No doubt about it. There was nothing good about it. Way too many strikeouts, and I think if there's one thing that's consistent within this Oklahoma State baseball program that I brought up in several interviews, I don't push back at all because I totally agree with it. The strikeouts, man. I mean, hey, I just mentioned just a minute ago that you can't really put up consistent crooked numbers unless you have consistent power and hit home runs. That kind of finishes your innings off. So I understand the home run aspect of it. Plus, a lot of times, you know, whenever you're doing that kind of thing, you're actually seeing a lot of pitches too, and the strikeouts lead to like 6 and 7 pitch at bats, and like the worst out you can make is like a 1 pitch out, right? I mean, so sometimes a strikeout's not necessarily the worst thing in the world because you did see 7 or 8 pitches. At least you got into the tank of the pitcher. You got your dugout to see the pitcher a little bit more, and you just don't want to make quick outs. So I understand that aspect of the strike. There is some give and take in terms of strikeouts, but the one consistent criticism I think this program definitely deserves that nobody, not anybody, should push back on. Whether you believe my take on Josh Holliday, or whether you believe my take on the production, the results of this, regardless, that's here nor there. That's my opinion. You're entitled to yours, okay? I'm giving you the facts that I know. I don't think anybody can push back against the fact that this program needs to strike out less. They need to have more quality at bats. They need to be tougher outs. We need to not have 6 innings a game to where literally the defense did not have to do anything to get Oklahoma State out. If you need any kind of example of what I'm talking about, look at how we scored against Vanderbilt. Yes, we had home runs, but it was the walks by Alex Conover. It was the hit and run dumper into center field by Brady Francisco. It was the leadoff opposite field hit by T.P. Wentworth. It was a 2-strike base hit to the opposite field by Brock Campbell. I know we got thrown out early trying to hit and run, but it's Josh moving runners and trying to at least create something offensively. That's the dynamic type of offense that if this team wants to make it to Omaha and make everybody happy, because no matter what side you come down on the conversation we just had, regardless of which side, if this team makes it to Omaha this year, we're all happy, okay? That's 2 trips to Omaha, several Big 12 titles. We've hosted regionals. Everybody's happy if we make it to Omaha this year. So that being the standard, okay, we all know that if Oklahoma State doesn't make it to a super regional, the seat's going to get hot from many different fans. Okay, fine. Okay. If this team is going to make it to Omaha, they're totally capable, but it's going to have to look like the last 5 innings on Sunday every time they show up. I don't care if they're playing Sam Houston. I don't care if they're playing Texas State. I don't care if they're playing Brown. I don't care who they're playing. The offense needs to be based on quality at bats, great hitting, and then the home run to finish it off. That's what yesterday was. Again, Colin Ritchie, the home runs were fine. They were awesome, but they weren't the offense. The offense were the quality at bats in front of the home runs. So that's the one criticism that no matter what side you come down on, Nobody can push back against that. We want an offense that's tough, that's gritty, that doesn't strike out 15 times. I'll take 8 or 9 strikeouts. That's fine. I think there's some give and take there. I think that 8 or 9 strikeout range is going to be, I think there's at least going to be some gray area there in terms of what different fans, their threshold for the amount of strikeouts. Because I think if you get around 1 or 2 or 3 strikeouts a game, you're not quite aggressive enough. And you're probably not working the pitcher enough because you're making a lot of early outs. You're putting the ball in play at early counts, and you're allowing their starters, you're not getting into their books, if you will, because a lot of times in the past, relievers, they only had their books paid for. So it's called getting into their books. So I would kind of push back to like less than 5 strikeouts maybe probably isn't a net positive. So I think probably that sweet spot where you could argue a couple either way would be about 8 strikeouts a game. Okay, I think that would be fair there. So just what you did yesterday, the dynamic offense, the great offense, and then when Colin Ritchie has a chance to come up and turn the inning from a 1 or 2 spot to a 4 or 5 spot, do it. And it's easier to do it because at that point you've created momentum. Things have become contagious, and now you're just rolling, which is exactly what happened yesterday. Ethan Lund, I think you saw it. He was absolutely electric, no doubt about it. Obviously, the strike throwing has to get better, but I will say this to his defense, to Coach Hawksworth's defense. Way too many walks over the weekend, but when your offense is not hitting, which OSU's wasn't until about the 5th inning yesterday, it's a different approach because you don't feel like you can make a mistake. You don't feel like you can leave one out over the plate and get away with it, because if they do hit a home run, it might be the game. So I will say I think the offense plays into the little bit of the fact that the pitching was a little bit more careful than they needed to be. So I'll say this, the ball to strike, meaning make the pitch look like a ball, and then it breaks into the strike zone for a strike, those get-me-overs, absolutely dirty from Ethan Lund. The strike to ball where you make it look like a strike, dive it out of the zone, both to the back foot and to the back foot on the slider, the top of the zone with the four seam, just absolutely dominant from Ethan Lund. This dude has a chance to be a legitimate shutdown power left arm like OSU hasn't had in a while. Justin Robleski would be close, but he got hurt. I would say Ethan Lund and Justin Robleski have very similar stuff. And Robleski, heck, he was sick games. The Dodgers turned to him in Game 6 and 7 of the World Series last year. So Ethan Lund, I think the strike throwing will clean up just if the offense starts scoring more behind him and as he gets more experience under belt. And then he also, I think he needs to understand his stuff's good enough to where he can throw strikes and get away with it. Just throw a strike in there and let him hit a ground ball somewhere, right? We don't have to strike everybody out. Not every pitch has to be something that's meant to get a swing and miss. Hey, that's a very good point, says Josh Harris. It'd be nice. Thank you, Josh, for showing up. Wet Blanket, thank you so much for joining. It'd be nice to put the ball in play and make the defense play baseball. I'm going to say this again, Wet. For all of the differences OSU fans have on where the program's at, Josh, the consistency and success versus lack of Omaha, regardless of where you come down, I'm going to say this again. Nobody can argue that this program strikes out too much and they have too many easy outs, and that this program needs to put the ball in play. Now, again, I'm going to say it. If you're hitting the second pitch of every at-bat and it's a ground ball to the shortstop and the second baseman, that's the worst thing you can do because you're making outs and you're not getting anything accomplished on the backside of it by working a pitch count, by getting into the bullpen, by allowing your dugout to see more pitches. So there are degrees to which we talk about. But, yes, I don't think anybody could push back on this program needs to strike out less, put the ball in play more. 1,000%. Mario Pesca just ran into a really hot OU team, an OU team that 1 through 9 is hitting the ball well. I'm not worried about Mario, not at all. It was weird to see him not throw strikes early on. I think that probably had to do with nerves maybe a little bit. Not sure. I don't care. I don't think it has to do with them losing all the weight either. Not worried about Mario. Can't wait to watch him pitch on Friday. And I thought Hudson Barrett, once he settled in, got the butterflies out of his stomach and just settled into what Hudson Barrett's going to be. I thought he showed some flashes of being a guy that could be good. Plus, you have Parker Jennings. you have other guys that are freshmen that could come in and help. Zane Burns, I think, could be a guy that could give you a look, maybe a Bryce LeBlanc, guys like that. So I think you have, and then the bullpen was very encouraging with Weck and Stormy Rose. I think Weck and Stormy, boy, that got to be huge. And then if you can get Weck and Stormy, and then Drew and the left, I'm having such a Brennan Phillips. Those are kind of your four guys, your veteran guys you really need to get going. Then you can kind of move in some of your freshmen, big arms. You got some big arms, like a Josiah Golden. I think he could probably go a little bit both ways in terms of maybe spot start and or go to the bullpen. A Parker Jennings, a Bryce LeBlanc, a Kyler Zager, a Zane Burns. Then you can start incorporating those guys. So I think really you got to, obviously, I think Ethan Lund has to be a legitimate ace. Okay, Mario has to be one of the best number 2 pitchers in college baseball, which he can be. And then Hudson Barrett needs to start refining his execution. He had the Tommy John. He's been out, hasn't played since he didn't play last year. So there's an adjustment period. He needs to just keep getting better and keep posting. But I think a lot of it's going to come down to, in 2024 you had all the great Tommy Molsky and guys that you just kind of ran into that turned out to be really good. Robert Kranz and all those guys. If Noah Weck and Stormy Rhodes can turn into Robert Kranz and Tommy Molsky, it's going to be a good bullpen. If Drew Blake and Brennan Phillips can get it figured out, it's going to be a really, really, really good bullpen, because then you add a bunch of really good freshman arms into that. And then if Ethan Lund, so let's sum it up this way. Ethan Lund, true ace. Okay, you need Weck and Rhodes to be Kranz and Molsky, okay? And you need Drew Blake and Brennan Phillips to figure it out, okay? Point blank, figure it out. And then incorporate the freshmen from there. Offensively, put the ball in play more, be dynamic, be tougher, okay? And be more like you were the last 5 innings of Sunday, and not anything like you were the first 2 games and 4 innings of this last tournament, which were pitiful. Not going to say bad, not going to hide behind anything. Pitiful. That was pitiful baseball, okay? It was not baseball that anybody can even watch, right? To the kids' credit, they rebounded, got them a big win. Now you can back up. You're going to Grand Canyon this weekend. You have time to practice. You have time you kind of know where you're at a little bit. You can exhale. You can breathe. You didn't go 0-3. You salvaged at least some of the weekend. To what extent, I think, will be different for each person to make up their mind. And you can start building now. You can start putting in, building maybe a Terrence Bowen and a Sebastian Norman, who's a beast, by the way, a Zane Burns, a Josiah Golden. You can start slowly just kind of building those guys into the process. So baseball and softball both started out in, hey, we need to win as many games mode as we can. Now I think both of those programs can back up and build. Presley on the softball field pitching-wise, guys like Zane Burns and Josiah Golden, those kind of guys on the baseball side. So super excited for that process part of it that I think we're probably getting ready to see. Basketball, going to say it point blank, this team doesn't rebound. They don't defend. The officiating was horrible. I don't care. I'm not letting this team off the hook, because whenever you fight, whenever your mannerisms suck, whenever you can't rebound, when your season is on the line and you go to Arizona State, one of the worst rebounding teams in the United States, and let them have 18 offensive rebounds, and then you lose the game Saturday, one of the big reasons is because you can't retrieve misses. You can't rebound. And then you're fighting on the sideline. The mannerisms suck. I don't care how bad the referees are, and I did think the referees were not good. It just made for a really bad, just kind of like, what are we doing, guys? That kind of, and hey, if you follow this at all, I don't like to go down the rabbit hole of officiating. I just think it's a loser mentality. I've been trained so much, and I know being around the Dodgers, they are just so big on just control what you can control. Just control what you can control. And the referees aren't something that you can control, so you got to worry. You only have so much bandwidth, right? So use all your bandwidth on things that you can control. So I don't go down the officiating the rabbit hole at all, okay? I do think the officiating sucked on Saturday, okay? I don't care. When you can't rebound, when you can't defend, when you're fighting with each other, when your mannerisms suck, when you go to Arizona State and just lay an egg with your season on the line, I got nothing for you. I got no excuses. I don't feel sorry for you. I'm kind of pissed, to be honest with you. Yeah, this team could throw a Hail Mary. They could beat Kansas and Houston at home and then win all 3 of their road games. It's possible. What have they done to show me that they have enough character to do that with? Okay, I think this is I think this goes to show turning your lineup over to 7 or 8 new guys all coming in from different places that have no attachment to Oklahoma State. They have no attachment to this team. They're all coming in wanting theirs, meaning they were the leading scorer of the team they came in from. Okay, which means they're going to want to be the leading scorer here. It just hasn't worked. Okay, so here's my plea with Oklahoma State fans. I don't think we're going to make the NCAA tournament next year either. Because yes, is Latrell Rollin great? Yes, is Jalen Montanati a good player? Absolutely. But you're also losing Parsifala, okay? And he's really he's kind of the heart and soul of your team. So I don't necessarily think Montanati and Allman and the freshmen coming in are a net positive over losing Parsifala. I mean, could next year's team make the NCAA tournament? Yes, of course. Okay. Do I hope they do? Of course. Do I think they will? I really don't. Okay. But I still think Coach Lutz is a good coach. And here's what I said this all last year. The thing that pissed me off about last year is he built nothing. We had to start this year over from scratch. Next year again is going to feel like we're starting over from scratch. And we're already in his 3rd year. So as long as here are my I guess guidelines, which they mean nothing. Trust me. I know that. Okay. If Coach Lutz goes back out and uses the transfer portal and goes and gets a whole bunch of different guys and still Ben Ahmed and Ryan Crotty and Jalen Montanati and Latrell Allman are getting pushed to the back of the row in favor of all these transfers that Coach Lutz wants to come bring in because he's going for a quick fix. If he does that again next year and we run into the same problems, for me, it is adios, get the hell out of here. You're not building anything. You're just trying to go for the 1-year quick fix, which even if this team does make the NCAA tournament, what have you built? So even if Oklahoma State does make the NCAA tournament, what have we built? What have we done to create momentum for next year? So what you've done is you created a team that made the NCAA tournament, but you haven't done it in a way that's building a program. I want to see a program being built. So even if next year he's going to show he's trying to build a team and the quick fix to make the NCAA tournament instead of backing up, doing things the way they need to be done and trying to build a program. If I see evidence that Coach Lutz is building a program and the program is making progress, I got no problems getting him whatever time that he needs. That's literally my judgment there. Either start building a program, show me proof that the program is actually building and getting closer to the final product year in and year out that we all want. Stop just building a team. Either do that or get the heck out of here. Okay? I will have the whatever amount of patience is needed to ride with Coach Lutz as long as he is building a program. That's what I want to see starting next year. I don't think that's too much to ask. I will not be in the boat next year if we're in this 5 days from now, if we're talking again that, hey, this team isn't making the NCAA tournament. I will not be in the boat of firing him as long as I feel like he is doing what he needs to do to build a program. That's where I'm at on that. Women's basketball, if you want a model of how to build a program at Oklahoma State in today's day of NIL, rev share, transfer portal, all of that, it's Coach Hoyt. And it starts with being a person that young people want to be around. Coach Hoyt is a person that young people want to be mentored by, okay? That's where it all starts. She has built. Now, this is exactly what I'm talking about with Coach Lutz. The culture of Oklahoma State basketball is pitiful. We're almost 2 years through his tenure at Oklahoma State, and he has not even started to build a culture at OSU. Call it a program, call it a process, call it whatever you want to call it. The first thing that Coach Hoyt did was instill a culture into this program. The first thing that Coach Morris is doing, building a culture, okay? That culture was started with Staley Hurd, Micah Gray, eventually Jaden Wooten. You get these dynamic, wonderful young players who then become your best recruiters, right? Because they've been here. They're going to tell you how awesome Coach Hoyt is. They're going to tell you how awesome GIA is. They're going to tell you how awesome the campus is. And there is no better recruiter than the players themselves, because they're going through what you're getting ready to go through as a potential recruit, okay? So she went and built by getting the player of the year in Oklahoma and Staley Hurd, by getting Micah Gray, by getting Jaden Wooten, adding Alina Girardi, that kind of deal. And then she filled around the needs with an Amari Whiting and a Haley Timmer and an A2, Achola Cott. But the Amari Whitings and the Achola Cotts and the Haley Timmers, they came in and added to that culture. They came in and added to the program. They weren't the program like Anthony Roy is being asked to be. They weren't the program like Christian Coleman and Kanye Clary and Jalen Curry and Parsa Fala are being asked to be. They weren't. They had those transfers in the men's side, they're asking to be the team. The transfers on the women's side are being asked to add to the team. So now they have to become a part of the culture versus being the ones that are creating the culture. And whenever you're trying to create a culture with 7 or 8 guys that are all coming here as the leading scorer from their last team, I don't care how good of a coach you are. That type of roster building and that type of chemistry is impossible to manage unless you got such good players that there's never adversity. Unless you get players that are so good that you just almost never lose. Because no matter how you do it, if you win, it's going to work, right? So you can go get 12 new players every year in basketball. And if you win, there's never adversity. Everything's going to be hunky-dory. But here's the problem with going and getting new transfers. What happens whenever there's the first sign of adversity? And there's a prolonged amount of criticism from the fans about this or that. That's when things start crumble, whenever you have a bunch of individuals that came together and you don't have a culture to rely on. I promise you, if there's some pushback against women's basketball, Staley Hurd is going to grit her teeth. She's going to ride for the brand. So is Jaden Wooten. So is everybody on that team, right? Because they have a base. They have a base to build off of, right? That's my biggest criticism of. That's why first of all, the crowds aren't very good at Gallagher High before the girls' games, okay? And they should be, because that team's fun to watch, and they win at home. So the crowd should be better. That's number one. And I'm getting to kind of why I can't stomach criticism of Coach Hoyt, because they're thankful for every person that shows up. They should have better crowds. That's one. Incredible ambassadors for the university. And then where the program was at when these people got it started, it's monumentally better. So, hey, yeah, do we get frustrated when they go on the road and lose 3 games they probably shouldn't have? Do we get frustrated when they lose to South Dakota State in the first year, in the first round of the NCAA last year? Of course, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But criticism doesn't go very far with me, with Coach Hoyt, because of all of the reasons that I just brought up just a minute ago. Wrestling, I thought it was gritty. I'm going to actually probably bring on Leo Bailey, or I might reach out to some of my wrestling people to get a little bit more into it, because I'm not the wrestling aficionado. Now I do cover it, and I go through all the matches on my social media. So if you want to go through detail by detail how each point was scored, I do have them. I was very proud of Connor Doucette. The Oklahoma State only had a 4-point lead going into his match. So if he got pinned if he gave up bonus points, it was going to end up being tied. And if he got pinned, Oklahoma State was going to lose that match, okay? Or if Tech falled or pinned, Oklahoma State was going to lose. Not only did that not happen, Connor Doucette went out, controlled his match, and gave Oklahoma State a very gritty, without Zach Ryder in the lineup, without Casey Swiderski. Oklahoma State on the road against number 6 or 7, went and got a really tough, hard-fought match, especially considering what happened to Cody Merrill. I'm not good enough with wrestling to be able to say that should have been a takedown. I'm not good enough to know whether those should have been stall calls or not. I think if you asked, the wrestling people I've talked about were okay with it, okay? They watched it and they were okay with it. That's what I will tell you. The people that I go to for my wrestling information. So I thought, considering you didn't have Swiderski, considering that Troy Spratley lost a very tough match to Ventresca right off the bat, considering that you didn't have Zach Ryder, considering that Cody Merrill had a very, very, very difficult loss, a great win, absolutely great win for the Cowboys, no doubt about it. And I tell you what, D. Lockett, we know how good D. Lockett is, no doubt about it, okay? But I'll say one thing that I think the wrestling people that I talk to say that he could get better at is being more offensive. Boy, howdy. I mean, he scored, in the first 6 seconds? The offense for D. Lockett was what I was very impressed with. And then Facundo at 174, very calculated match. I thought he just did a great job of being just kind of scoping how do I need to win this match. And Robidoux at 157, very highly ranked match. Really not a lot of scoring early. An escape by Robidoux in the second, 2-0 lead. And then you had a couple of stall calls against Virginia Tech. So those go both ways. I mean, it's just kind of is what it is. Good experience for Bo Hickman at 149. I thought Trevor Dops wrestled very tough. Sergio Vega, absolute stud, 100% stud. I love watching this young man. The true freshmen for OSU wrestlers are just absolutely awesome to watch. Jax Forrest, I have no idea how he didn't get it back points. I have no idea how he won that match against his old foe from high school, of which those two wrestlers wrestled in the state finals against each other, and Forrest won. It looked for all the world that Forrest was going to get taken down and then give up at least 2 back points, right? He didn't. He actually ended up getting the points out of the move, ended up somehow winning the match, and the way it's been put to me, winners just find a way to win. And that is Jax Forrest. So I think we're done talking about the red shirt. I think most people pretty connected to the wrestling program and or just wrestling all in all, they never thought he was going to red shirt. And so I think that's pretty much a done deal. I think we're going to see Jax Forrest from here on out. Hey, Wet Blanket, Hoyt has done a really good job. Mason Snyder, thank you so much for joining. Although this year we'll probably miss the tourney, Roy has been one of my favorite players to watch, and yeah, he can absolutely shoot. I don't know if it's possible to build a program in today's environment. That's just me, though. Yeah, it's tough. I was talking to somebody who is very connected with the OSU basketball men's program today, and that's literally what their exact comment. I don't know if you can do that. Yeah, Merrill lives and dies by the 1-point matches. He needs to score more. I agree. I asked a wrestling person, because I always have to default because I don't know enough. Hey, could this actually be a good thing for Cody Merrill? Because it's like he just tries to win matches through defense. And now that he actually lost one, will this kind of teach him a lesson that he needs to have more offense? And they agreed too. So, Josh, I think that's a great point to make. And no doubt Wet Blanket Vega is awesome. And Josh Harris, David Taylor is showing you how to build a program. Look at all the young talent he has brought in. Totally agree. So, hey, that's going to do it to me for me today on OState Daily Live. Thank you so much for tuning in. What a wonderful weekend. We're going to have these weekly roundups. We're going to have some more shows throughout the week, so make sure and tune into those. Make sure your notifications are on, and thank you so much for tuning in. So until next time, again, thank you one more time, and as always, go Pokes.